Almost going to get started here. Yeah. Okay. Welcome everyone for coming to our charter meeting. I know that we have people that will come in, coming in, leaving, everything else. So I'm just going to go ahead and start. I have the recording on. Just want to welcome everyone. Are there any questions before we get started? I know there people have been emailing me, so I'm just wondering in our little area right now if there are any questions that need to be answered or anything like that. Um, you have an opportunity to ask them now if you'd like. Okay. Ashley, are you ready to go? Because I don't have any other announcements. I'm not sure if you are or not.
Hi, yes.
Awesome.
It's so
Hi.
good to see you, Betty. Thanks for
I know,
having me
same
today.
here. No, thank you. So Ashley is going to be covering our school safety. I had your title and I left it off of my thing. So Ashley Pistillo, right? Am I saying it right?
Costello.
Pistello.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
She's with,
Italian, so yeah.
yes, she's with
Different than
USBE.
those
Yeah.
Y type double L's.
No, I know, I go the reverse, but anyway. So Ashley Pistello is with our Utah State Board of Education under our safety center. So she is gonna fill us in with some of the changes, I believe, and where we're at as far as a state goes with our school safety center. Take it away,
Aw-
Ashley.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here for you all. Okay. And perfect. Okay, well, hello. Thanks for having me. My name's Ashley. I am with the School Safety Center at the Utah State Board of Education. I have a bunch of different stuff to share with you today. A lot of it's just going to be for awareness, so I'll cruise through some of these slides. And then please know, I'm Betty. I will send you a PDF of this slide deck afterwards that you could send to folks. And then all of the links that I share already are hyperlinked, so folks will be able to interact and engage and revisit some of this content.
Okay, thank you. I'm here. I just don't want to have my face all over the place.
Perfect. Yeah, no worries. Brief history of School Safety Center. Some of you might know. So we were started back in 2019 through House Bill 120, Student and School Safety Assessment. And the School Safety Center is a multidisciplinary team at the state level, right? We love folks in schools to be on multidisciplinary teams for behavioral threat assessment, reintegration, all of those types of things. So we like to model that as well. So not only do we have folks from USBE, but we also have liaisons from the Department of Public Safety, DPS. We have a liaison from the Office of Substance Use and Mental Health, and then from the Utah State Charter School Board. So it's so great to have all the different organizations at the table. Here's our pictures and titles. If you wanted to go deep dive into that later, we're directed by Chantel Coda, and then our coordinator is Rhett Larson, with Melissa doing all the behind the scenes star things that she gets done for us. Our mission, obviously, is to work collaboratively and provide technical assistance and training to you all as LEAs. And then the vision of our School Safety Center, hopefully, is a vision that we share with a lot, if not all, LEAs across the state. And that is that each student can learn in a safe and healthy environment. So here are some key legislation about school safety in our state for Utah. Again, a lot of content here. I'm not expecting everyone to absorb all of it, or anyone actually. However, all of these are linked out, so feel free to dive into anything later if it sparks your interest. But that House Bill 120 back in 2019 was that student and school safety assessment bill that created us. House Bill 61 in 2023 created the school safety and security specialists, as well as the state security chief and his division, so Chief Pennington, who oversees a lot of our physical school safety, structural buildings and such. House Bill 140 is Standard Response Protocol to Active Threats in Schools. That is the legislation that mandates SRP, hold, secure, lockdown, evacuate, shelter in all of our schools. So we have that standardized language both across the state and across organizations as well. So fire is familiar with it, police and law enforcement. So it's a standardization of language and protocols. House Bill 84 was our big school safety bill in 2024. So, school safety amendments, that is where we got the minimum safety and building standards. That includes fencing, external cameras, internal locks on doors, window glazing and film. That is bullet resistant. And then House Bill 40, they made some updates and changes and amendments with school safety amendments. And then this year, I won't be providing a deep dive into the bills this year. However, be on the lookout for House Bill 44. That one did pass. Oh, all the way in the future of 2026. Whoops, small typo there. School security personnel standards. So that has a few different pieces into it. It allows special functions officers, FSOs, to serve as one of the armed and trained school personnel. So if a school wanted to choose an SFO instead of an SRO or a school guardian, that's an option. It also puts some minimum cybersecurity standards into place for LEAs. And then Senate Bill 151, school safety modifications, that the main topic there is behavioral threat assessments and new protocols for sharing that behavioral threat assessment information across schools and across LEAs in case students transfer schools, transfer school districts, transfer charter schools, things like that. So just things to put on your radar. And then some other ones that we'll dive deeper into is R277-400. That is an administrative rule that comes out of our office at the Utah State Board of Education. It's been updated to be called School Safety and Security. R277-471 is school construction, which adds a few things, which we'll talk about. And then R69813 comes out of the Department of Public Safety. So that is their school safety administrative rule, which includes the bleed control kits, the first aid kits, things as such that should sound familiar to all of us. Again, you'll get this slide deck so you can click on these links to see these bills from the previous years. So some updates in R277-400. Like I said, we changed the name to School Safety and Security. We added and updated some definitions. We added the incident response method, which, if it might sound familiar to you, that is the 100 by 100 grid approach that we will lay over our schools so we can have a standardized way to label our schools. So using that grid, we could start labeling them A1, B1, C1. So that way, if something happens in our school, law enforcement or other organizations come on to assist us, we can tell them the threat is in D7 and they know exactly where we're going. There is no action for LEAs on that right now. That direction will come from Chief Pennington and his office, the State Security Office. So again, no action there. Emergency preparedness training for school occupants. So we have put those standard response protocols into this rule, which you should be all familiar with. We have added avoid, deny, defend, which is an additional protocol in times of an active threat. Again, no direction or no action from the LEAs just yet. Us at the School Safety Center, we're looking to bring an educational lens to avoid, deny, defend to our state here soon. And then we have added a reunification method for all LEAs. So this is the first time that we are requiring LEAs to have some sort of plans for student reunification. So if there is you have to evacuate and you go to a reunification site, what do those plans look like? How will we organize, in an organized way, get students back to their parents and guardians? We've added the ideas of emergency recovery plans, which I'll go into depth here in a second. And then we've also added the school safety and security training program. Let's see. Will there be anything specific about building mapping before next school year? Peter, great question. I will be honest, that is coming out of DPS and their office. So I haven't heard any updates recently. However, next time I meet with, or when we meet with Chief Pennington and his staff, I will ask that and get that question back to Betty. So here are some additional updates to our 277-400. So this is where we're going to dive deeper into the emergency recovery plans. It is already required for LEAs to have emergency preparedness plans and emergency response plans. And this sentence of by July 1st each year, an LEA shall certify, that is old text. The only thing that's been added now is the recovery plans as well. So we should have emergency preparedness, emergency response, and emergency recovery plans, and they should be practiced at the school level. They should be presented and reviewed by its teachers. What is an emergency recovery plan? I got you. It is policies and procedures to that need to be developed to return your LEA, your school, back to ordinary daily routine. So we're looking at 4 different types of recovery, and I'll show you those on the next page. And then 4 different time periods of recovery. So short term, long term, and then that immediate recovery as well. If you're familiar with our school safety and security specialist and their training programs, their second training was actually on emergency recovery plans. Scott Ayer, our liaison with the Office of Youth and Substance Health, he was the trailblazer on these recovery plans, and he did a lot of research. And we created a document to help LEAs either build recovery plans or assess ones that they already have. But I will also drop a link in the chat to the recording of that training because he took about 45 minutes, 50 minutes diving deep into the why and the what and the how. So very beneficial. So these are the 4 different types of recovery plans that we're asking LEAs to have in mind. And this comes from, again, extensive research from nationally recognized organizations, specifically REMS, the Readiness and Emergency Management for Schools. There we go. So a lot of this came from REMS, but also some additional resources as well. So we're looking at academics recovery, getting students, back to learning and back to that academic baseline. Business services recovery. What does payroll look like? How do you accept donations? Things like that. Health, well-being, and behavioral recovery. How do we help and support our students and our staff with their health and mental well-being to make sure that they can come back to baseline to navigate the daily structure of school and learning and teaching? And then physical and structural recovery. If the building needs some repair, what does that look like? What are those plans? Again, this is the resource that we put together, super helpful. I will drop a link to this resource as well when I can, probably at the end here. But this is super helpful. It goes through all the definitions. And like I said, a lot of yes/no questions to help LEAs either build their plans or assess for gaps and strengths. Before I move on, any questions there? I am also trying to monitor the chat.
I'll raise a hand if I see anything in the chat also to try to help maneuver you through this.
Cool. Thanks so much, Betty.
Of course.
Okay, so the R277471, the school construction oversight, this has added the universal access key box, and this should be familiar to LEAs. This was in one of the House bills that all schools should have a universal access key box. We are not calling them Knox boxes. We're not calling them lock boxes. They're going to be known as those universal access key box that has, whatever master keys outside organizations need to, manage your school if they need to come in and assist with any sort of emergency or threat. And then it also includes AEDs will now be required for any new builds or any new major remodels for schools. And the rule out of DPS R698 talks about limited entry points and windows. video surveillance and exterior cameras, internal classroom door locks. This is where we talk about, the doors being either fully open or fully closed. Both positions, they should be locked. So that way, if it is fully open, all you have to do is quickly, unprop it and it's just going to shut and it's going to lock. And then this is where it also states no door magnets or anything that compromises that structure of the door going from fully open to fully closed. Yeah, Simon.
Yeah, Ashley, I was on those. I know you're not calling them a Knox box, but the universal access key boxes. When I had Brian Nelson stop by our facilities, we have Knox boxes for our fire department. He told me those are not going to be enough, that we have to do a separate one for law enforcement. Do you know anything about that, or have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I can connect you with Chief Pennington. I would normally connect you with Lieutenant Barnes. However, he is out for an extended period of time right now. But yes, so the reason for the universal access box is not just for fire, but it's also for law enforcement to have access to those keys as well.
Well, what they said to us was that the police and the fire department don't want to they don't want to use the same box is basically what he told me.
Mm.
And I'm kind of like, well, can we get somebody with a little more weight to tell them tough, not tough? You got to use the same box. Why am I installing another one?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. I'm gonna drop my email address for you in the chat. Go ahead and email me, and then I will personally connect you with Chief Pennington, and he can provide some more updated language and code and information for you on that.
Okay, that I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, of
I have
course.
I have a similar question to Simon's. I also talked with Brian Nelson, so that means we must be in the same area. And he had mentioned that the boxes also had to have some sort of digital surveillance on them. So we were told we need that and we need a very specific type box, but we don't know what kind of box to get still. Is that true with the cameras on it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I'm gonna do is actually I'm gonna pull up. Okay, cool. You guys can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Cool. Um, I'm working off of one screen right now, but this is the code, so you guys know exactly what's happening. Ooh, we're talking about the lock boxes. So we want R277471. So you can see the language exactly how it is. So if I look for access boxes here, universal access key box has the same definition. And this is where the requirements for these access boxes are. So they're installed at main entry points, contains these master keys to all of these areas, accessible to only authorized emergency responders. Here is that line that you're referring to, electronically monitored for tampering. I will say DPS is working on some more granular language of what this exactly means. However, yes, this is in the code that they should be electronically monitored for tampering.
And that was kind of the question that came up, is that, okay, you get a digital alert if it's been opened? Is there a video camera on it? That seemed to me to be more of the gray area.
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, that's going to be monitored through DPS. So if you could go ahead and email me, I will personally connect you with Chief Pennington.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, Peter. And then Deborah, I see
yeah.
your hand as well.
Sorry. Hey, I'm curious. We had our walkthrough, and that was one of the places we got kind of dinged on video surveillance. Can you tell us more about are we supposed to have someone hired who just looks at the video camera all day? Because that's what they said. Who is monitoring? It's like, what's up on all of on our computers? So many of us have it up, but is there any one person staring at it every day? Does anyone here have a person like that? You can afford to hire them? I mean, can you help me understand what that expectation is?
Yeah, that's a great question. I believe in the codified language of the law that you just have to have external surveillance of It's like parking lots and playgrounds while school is in session. I do not believe it doesn't say, it says and requires to have an individual monitoring those.
That's why
However,
we got a ding though. The person who
yeah,
did the safety walkthrough, we got a ding because we didn't have someone who just watches the cameras.
I know some LEAs do. However, Deborah, if you can, please email me and I'll spend some time digging
Okay.
into more granular language there and I'll
Okay.
follow up with you. But then
Thank
you're
you.
right. And this is a ding from the drop by safety assessment check. Cool. Yeah, because we also need to make sure that our school safety center and USBE expectations align and we're on the same page with DPS as well. So
What we were told, Deborah, was just that it had to be up, like on a screen, visible at all times, but not that we had to sit and watch it. That's what our person told us when he came by.
That was the same that we had as well, that it needs to be a dedicated monitor. So it
Yeah,
can't just be pulled up on your screen in a tab. It
mhm.
needs to be up and visible all the time.
like a
So
TV on the wall.
yeah, so like our front office lady has two monitors, and one is where she does her work, and then the other one has, those cameras
Mm.
pulled up there. I have it in mine as well, but mine's not up all the time.
We were told the same thing as well, so that's what we've done. So that's kind of surprising to me that they told you that.
Awesome.
I
I
got the
love this.
information secondhand, so I can clarify with them because I'm not the safety security specialist. So it was that person. So I'll clarify. Thank you. Thanks. That's very helpful.
Yeah, thanks so much for chiming in and really having conversations. That's what this is all about, right? We're working together to kind of figure out what works best for all of us. So then the rest of the things in those bills, that's where they itemize the bleed control kits and the first aid kits, which are still in process of getting delivered to schools. Both contracts, so the two separate vendors for those kits technically have until the end of June. So they are expected to fulfill this request and they have until June 30th. I know first aid kits should be out, 99% of them. I know bleed control kits are a little delayed. However, they are the biggest update I've received is that they should all be out by the end of May. Smaller requests should be delivered quicker than the end of May, but the end of May is the goal. And then, like I said, please have some grace and patience with us. They technically have until the end of June to get those delivered. This rule also talks about fencing around playgrounds and then just the compliance framework. This is our school safety playbook. Transparent, it is a little outdated. We first created this, hours in the basement around the table in the summer after House Bill 84 was passed. And this just helps schools and LEAs kind of take that House bill and friendly language, some pictures, some hyperlinks, things like that to help us easily digest or digest more easily, I guess, the content of House Bill 84. So please know we are in the middle of updating it. We've had a handful of updates since then. So we've actually hired an external contractor to help us with these updates. So we will continue to update it and publish it as soon as it's ready for the field. If you haven't already signed up for our School Safety Center newsletter, this is a monthly newsletter that goes out to our listservs. If you are a school safety and security director and you're listed as the director, you already get this. You don't have to sign up for it. But if you're not and you're not receiving these newsletters, this is the access request form. Again, this is hyperlinked. I'll send out the slide deck afterwards to Betty so you could come back to this here. I know I only have about 7 more minutes. I've already given you an update on first aid and bleed control kits, wearable panic alert devices. Being transparent, I wish I had more concrete information for you. However, what I can share is that we have awarded the contracts. They're currently in their last stages of crossing the T's, dotting the I's, finalizing some language. Once they are signed and finalized, we can share some more information with the field. And what that will look like is we will send out a Qualtrics form similar to the first aid kits and the bleed control kits. You'll tell us as an LEA which vendor you would like to go with, and then we'll collect that information and then we'll start moving forward with the process there. Some initiatives on the horizon. We have the school safety and security training program. This came out of new updates of R277400, which was in response to some law that got passed last year. So the school safety and security training program will be an annual one-day training for school safety and security personnel. So that includes the director, the specialist at each school, and then whoever the armed and trained personnel is at each school. So that could include an SRO, an SFO, the school guardian, and or the armed school security guard from that third party. So that's going to be a training that they'll come together, talk about school safety for a day. And we're working on creating that. We have a third party creating that content right now. And then we'll get more information out to LEAs in the summer. Emergency Preparedness Planning Guide. We have a guide that helps LEAs create emergency response plans. It's time for an update, so we're in the middle of updating it. And then as soon as that is complete, we will send that out to you all as well. We want to make sure the new additions from updated codes and updated language and expectations for your emergency response operations plans are all included in that planning guide. And then the school safety dashboard is also on the horizon. We have been working with another third-party contractor. We are creating a public dashboard that's going to share some school safety data at the school level. So folks will be able to see some, again, school levels, school safety data, policies, things as such, and compare each school district, things like that. So we are working on that. I am not sure of an end date. However, just a little nugget in your pocket for the future. School safety and security specialists. I hope you are all well versed in them in each of your schools. So I'm going to shift. The only thing I'll mention here is we have 3 trainings with them this school year. That first one was organizing an after action debrief, because that is a new legislative duty for them since the 2025 legislative session. So their first training was all on an after action debrief. The second one, like I said, was on emergency recovery plans. And then the third one was rescheduled to April 29th, will be about the legislative updates, school safety specifically. I'll let you peruse through this information about organizing an after action debrief. This just goes in the why, the who, the what it is not. We created a template for them for when they host these debriefs. We help them walk through the questions, what went well, what are some gaps, what didn't go as planned, what's some follow-up and opportunity for improvement. Some professional learning opportunities we have here soon. Wednesday, April 15th is going to be our last youth mental health first aid session this school year. Standard response protocol and standard reunification method, SRP, SRM. This is going to be a half-day virtual session. If you have not been to a half-day training with them or a full-day training with them, SRP is required in our state. Their version of SRM is not required. However, some sort of reunification method and plans are required for LEAs. So you can register via Midas. There's a 200 cap, so plenty of room. It's going to be virtual, 8 to 12. And if you show up and you are a participant, you will get a copy of the recording in case you have to accidentally step away for any period of time. You could catch up later once they send out the recording to us. We are hosting a Prepare Workshop 1, Comprehensive School Safety Planning, Prevention Through Recovery. Prepare Workshop 1 is all about the incident command system. It's about, like, again, prevention through recovery. And this is the chosen curriculum by the state security chief, ideally for all LEA directors. So that would be you all, everyone in this room. So everyone is on the same page. So if you have not taken a Prepare Workshop 1 training yet, May 14th, 8 to 4, it's in person. This one's up at USU. We had 2 other ones earlier this year, one down south and then one also in Lehigh. We will be having more next school year. So if this date doesn't work for you, and again, you haven't gotten trained, please put it on your to-do list for next year. It is a very, very beneficial training. And then lastly, our 4th annual Utah School Safety Conference is Wednesday, Thursday, June 10th and 11th this year. So same week, shifting the days back one. And then we're going to have it at Draper Park Middle School. What questions do you have in the last 30 seconds? How'd I do, Betty?
You did great. We had a lot of questions today, so thank you very much. I
Perfect.
appreciate it so much. And as usual, I'll upload this into our YouTube link. And thank you so much, Ashley. I appreciate it. You have a
Yeah,
wonderful time. We'll
of
invite you back.
course. Yes, please do. Let me stop sharing and have a wonderful rest of your meeting.
You too. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for those great questions. Now I'd like to introduce Luciano Marzulli. I hope I said your last name correctly. All right, awesome. And he is with our Utah Coalition for Community Schools. Take it away, Luciano. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I am gonna attempt to share my screen here. And let's see, you're probably seeing yourselves. I need
I
to
just
get
wanted
my,
to let you know also I'm here. I just have it on mute and my video
okay.
off, but I'm here. I just want to let you know that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I just need to find the right, nope, you're seeing all my work here, but this is not what I'm gonna present on. Hold on a sec. Sorry about that. Oh my goodness, I have so many windows open. That's where I get into trouble here. Huh. All right, maybe I don't have what I need loaded, so I'll take a sec to do that. Um,
No worries.
as Betty mentioned, here we go. Now we can share. All right, can you see that slide deck?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So like Betty mentioned, I work for Promise Partnership Utah. We are part of Utah's Promise. So Utah's Promise is our umbrella organization that has United Way of Salt Lake, which you're probably more familiar with. And then I'm part of the Promise Partnership team. And then the other part of Utah's Promise is 211, which is a resource information and referral line. So Betty asked me today to come and present about our Utah Coalition for Community Schools. So I'm the director for community schools for Promise Partnership. And my position is unique in that one of my primary tasks is to be the steward and support for our statewide coalition for community schools. The other part of my role is to work with our partnership directors who have partnerships throughout the Salt Lake Valley with particular schools and districts supporting their work to enhance community schools. So the result that I have for us today is to gain a deeper understanding of the Utah Coalition for Community Schools and share opportunities for engagement. Before I get started, would it help to define the term community school? You can do a reaction thumbs up if it's yes. I know there's a thumbs down buried somewhere there. That's a no. You can drop a no in the chat, or you can unmute and say yes or no. I think I saw a thumbs up from someone.
We're getting a lot of thumbs up, so
Okay,
yeah.
thumbs up. Okay, perfect. So defining a community school. Community schools I'm going to read this out loud and then I'll talk a little bit about what defines a community school. So they're more than just places of learning, vibrant hubs of the community, nurturing growth and development of students and families, ensuring they have the resources they need to thrive. They're a strategy that utilizes the strengths of students, families, community organizations, and schools. So they're a system that educates and meets the needs of the whole child and intentionally functions the way the name implies, like a community. So a nice differentiation is we can look at for like after school program For example, anyone can start a program. They're not connected necessarily with intention. And the people, the students that engage with that program don't really have any voice into like why that program exists there at a particular school. The difference with the community school model is that we approach programs with intention. So we might have several after school programs working together on the similar goal. Oftentimes, the idea is to support academic enrichment about what's happening during the day, so during in-school time. So just to give you a little bit of a differentiation between how we try and move towards some intentionality, some collaboration with the community school model. And then we have this little note here that Promise Partnership Utah builds cradle to career civic infrastructure and creates opportunities for systems change across communities, within communities, and in schools. And so our community school efforts fall within our broader work to do collective impact work here locally. So this is a nice wheel that we often refer to. In the middle, we have our why. Why do we do community school work? So that all students can flourish in thriving school communities. And then the drivers of the work, school staff and coordinators, the youth and their families, as well as community partners. For a local context, community partners could be the State Board of Education as an example, or Utah After School Network, or Salt Lake County Health, Salt Lake County Youth Services. Then we have some enabling conditions. So among those parties, having a shared vision, having trusting relationships, being able to rely on data together, and then having inclusive decision making. I think that's one of the keys to all this too. And then our key practices are almost at the outer ring. So we have expanded and enriched learning opportunities, community connected classroom instruction, culture of belonging, safety, and care, integrated systems of support, powerful student and family engagement, and collaborative leadership. Now, I'll say that nationwide, I think those 6 practices that I just mentioned, they added 2 because this comes from a couple of national organizations that really do a lot of the theorizing and guidance of community schools. They added a couple of those, and one of them I know is the community connected classroom, and that's a really challenging practice across the country. So I just want to recognize that. So a lot of schools that are following this community school model are all over the spectrum in terms of how they're realizing what a community school means. And then the last ring is our supportive infrastructure, having strategic partnerships, being able to rely on resources that are sustainable, shared governance structures, having this kind of agreement of continuous improvement. That's where we come back to looking at data systems, and professional learning opportunities. So as an organization, like I mentioned before, I support our statewide coalition for community schools. And then we also have a body of work where there's staff who are adjacent to me who work in specific communities, and I'll give you some examples of that in just a little bit here. So this kind of gives you a little peek into that. Promise South Salt Lake and Promise Mill Creek Promise. Those are 2 separate entities that are working towards community schools. And we have partnership directors that work directly with Promise South Salt Lake, Mill Creek Promise, and the schools within those geographic areas, within those municipalities. And this gives you a little bit of a further breakdown. So here we're naming some of our partnership directors. My colleague Saida works with Davis School District as well as Canyon School District on their community school models. In Granite School District, we have 3 partnership directors working there, Taryn, Sydney, and Evelyn. And then we have a couple of people in Salt Lake School District as well, working with specific schools in the district on their community school models with those schools. So, for example, Liberty, Horizonte, Glendale, East High, and then the charter Salt Lake Center for Science Education in Rose Park. So, our support for the Utah Coalition for Community Schools is done by myself and a couple of my colleagues. The WHO. So our coalition is made up of cross-sector partners. There's a lot of people on the ground in schools, coordinators, social workers, after-school program coordinators. There's a handful of people who have titles of community school coordinators in name, and there's a couple of districts that have named community school directors for their district. So those are all folks that are on our coalition, as well as other nonprofits, as well as representatives from the State Board of Education and education adjacent nonprofit organizations. And so the what, through our connections, professional learning opportunities, we are working towards supporting community schools here in Utah. And that why is always coming back to the experiences of students, seeing students and families thriving. So a little bit about our steering committee. I'm going to give you a breakdown here, and this is missing a couple of people because we've recently had a couple of new additions to our steering committee that I wasn't able to add before our meeting today. But you can see here we have district representatives, State Board of Education representatives, partners from other United Ways, so United Way of Northern Utah and Ogden, United Way of Utah County in Provo, and then again, folks from other districts, Utah Mental Health Collaborative, that's a very new addition to our steering committee, but a very valuable addition. And you can see here our two chairs and myself as the coordinator for that coalition. So community schools in Utah really are everywhere. But in terms of what we've been able to capture, we know that community schools exist in Granite, Canyons, Salt Lake District, Davis, Ogden, and Alpine. And we do have representatives from all these districts on our steering committee for our coalition. So the statement that we've put out, and we come back to this often, is that, oops, oh, what happened? My ability to do this technology today is not working. There we go. Where were we? There we go. Back on track. In Utah, we envision confident children who are thriving now and in the future with families that are engaged and empowered in connected communities that are safe, accessible, and vibrant. Let's see if I can get this back onto presentation. Yes. So I'm going to skip through some of these slides. The reason I'm sharing this slide is to give you a sense of how we rate ourselves or how we look at ourselves as a state coalition. We're between evolving and expanding at this point. Our coalition is very young. It's only been in existence for about 2 years. And community schools in Utah have been in practice for a little over 20 years. I think Ogden School District was the first district to get a full service community schools grant, and since has been engaged in community school work with and without federal funding to support that. So to give you a sense of our steering committee and our goals, this is kind of the invitation for engagement. So we have our quarterly coalition meetings where we meet 4 times a year. But our steering committee meets once a month And we're really formed, the steering committee is comprised of 4 working groups. So we have a partner engagement working group that's working to support schools that are new to this model. Some of the things that when we talk about technical assistance, that's what we're talking about, is being able to offer some sort of guidance to new schools or new districts to the community schools model. We have a policy and advocacy group that works with the senior policy director at Utah's Promise to advocate during the legislative session and outside of the legislative sessions with policymakers to support community school work. And then we have a professional learning group that steers our community schools learning network. We offer monthly virtual sessions that last an hour, focused on one of those key practices of the wheel that I showed you earlier. And then our communications working group is really focused on telling the story of community schools in Utah through our website, through our newsletter, and we're starting to look into some opportunities to engage on social media. So here's another slide about our learning network. I can follow up with information about that. We're just about wrapped up with our learning network for this year. We have one more session in April, and then otherwise we run 3 sessions in the fall, 3 sessions in the spring, because the winter break interrupts the ability to do one in December. So that is my presentation on community schools and our Utah Coalition for Community Schools. If you have any questions or interested in getting engaged with our coalition, I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Luciano. I appreciate it. And
Yeah,
thank you. You have a great day.
thanks.
Talk to you later. Goodbye.
Bye.
Hello, Erin. Thank you for joining us. I would like to introduce Erin Bro. Am I correct with your last name? Nope. I'm having a hard time today. What is
No,
your last name?
it's Bruff.
Bruff. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And he is with our State Gateway. Well, just with our State Gateway system. That way, directors, if you need to access data, you need to access test scores, all of that. Erin can walk us through that. There's a lot of things that can happen with State Gateway, and I know that a couple of administrators have reached out to me, and I'm able to answer some of the questions, but not all of the questions since I don't use it like I used to in the past. Take it away, Erin. Thank you.
You bet. I am going to press share. It is working. Yay. Okay. You're just getting the presenter view, aren't you? All right, we'll just deal with that. It doesn't want to switch over to me. It'll be fairly quick, just kind of introduction. Again, my name is Aaron Bruff. I'm the Director of Data and Statistics here at the State Board of Education. And one of the areas I'm over is the Data Gateway. By the way, the link, there's multiple ways to get to the link, and I'll actually pull it up with LiveSite and we'll work with that as well. So with that, we do make sure that we're protecting personally identifiable information as we're going through that. So anyone who has a login into the Data Gateway to see information, they will need to sign in, and every year sign off that they are protecting and they are making sure they're following privacy protection policies and such. So just know as we're going through this, depending on how you're looking at the view, sometimes display or disclosure avoidance data is put up front because it's publicly available. And some of these reports go beyond that, where you can actually drill in and see the small n sizes because you have access or you can log in and see that. If you have questions about the data privacy and why, on the Data Gateway, you'll see on the right-hand side, it says, the third tab down, it says data privacy. If you expand that, basically goes through and describes what's going on inside of this. It's basically underlying counts for groups are not reported. And if a group has one or more subgroups with 10 or few students, basically it's going to be replaced with n less than 10. Or if there's a frame or a range, and this is what this is doing, you don't have to memorize this stuff, just know that this is our disclosure avoidance, some algorithm that we put in place. So it's making sure that these reports are in compliance with FERPA. All of our reports that are publicly facing adhere to this policy. I don't know if there's any questions or not. Feel free to reach out if you're like, hey, I can't see, and you get a little bit further detail, you can do a data request and we can get that information if you need it. With that said, as we look at it up on the top hand page of the data gateway, it says log in or register. If you click on the register, if you haven't already done so, you can go in there, you put in your first name, last name, your email address, which becomes your username. It puts in a temporary password. It doesn't really matter what it is. And then you go in, you drop down on the LEA, you put in your Cactus ID and then your last 4 digits of your SSN, and it will automatically register you and assign you to the school district, hopefully. Do a quick little tour then of what we're looking at inside of here. There are some, if you click on the data gateway, again, this is on the right-hand side. There's some quick start guides. They're a little dated. We do need to update some of these, but just know that they are there. With that said, if you go back to the front page, and again, I'm going to take you live into it in just a few minutes. On the right-hand side, there is a number of reports, and they're broken out by basically a content area. The first one's assessment. I'll show you the compare schools. And by the way, this has been updated. And we'll show that to you in just a few minutes. But basically, the way this works is, back up just a moment, we'll meet with legislatures or policymakers or charter school directors, whoever, and sometimes question, well, who's performing best in Utah? Or who's the worst, or who's in the middle? These are interesting questions that come in. And so if a legislature or a newspaper or the news channel or someone says, well, who's the highest performer? They're basically, it's like you'll find the highest performer and here they are. And I usually, in any given year, can tell you what are the top 3 schools. But when we say what are the top 3 schools, it's subjective to also, well, what type of population does that school house? So for example, we're looking inside of here, it has Ames up on top. It also has Utah County Academy of Science. These are high-performing schools. What the compare schools does is it takes what's called it's Gower's coefficient of similarity is the structure that we use, where we look at the school type, if it's a charter school or not. We look at your location. We look, are you online or not? Are you an alternative school or not? And then we also look at the various components of your student population, run that through the algorithm, and then we find basically schools that are most similar to you, and then we list those out. And so when you're looking at the compare schools, the difference being is you're being compared to the 20 most similar schools statistically within the state. And so it gives you a breakdown of my language arts, my math, my science, and now we have WIDA in there as well, and more will be coming as long. But that gives you a different view. So just sharing with you this is one view or way to go in. And it's actually really helpful a lot of times, especially for charter schools, because sometimes you're like, hey, I'm in this neighborhood, and maybe you do want to compare it to a neighborhood school, but at the same time, you're like, we're not like them. We're a little bit, students are selecting to come here. So what does our makeup look like? How do I compare to someone else? And maybe I want to do some collaboration work with this other school that's very similar to me. I want to know what they're doing. This is a way to find schools that are similar to yours. And by the way, if anyone has a question as I'm going through this, please stop me. The next one we'll look at is the student proficiency. This one is pretty straightforward, where basically you go in, you say, this is what the state's performance on, this is the RISE, the Utah Aspire Plus, and the DLM test results that were all put into one. And you get this is your academic performance for those three test subjects, language arts, math, and science for the given year. This is not accountability. This doesn't rely upon some additional stringent accountability business rules for inclusion. This is basically the results of the test of those tests that were completed. Hopefully that makes sense based upon tying them to the school back to the best of our abilities, but sometimes some students can be tied to two schools that in some circumstances, whereas in accountability, we have to bring it through some tiebreakers to make sure it's only aligned to one. So that's kind of the difference between those two. But as you go on through here, you can see here, there's language arts, math, science. You can click on the district and you can filter it down by the grade and see the results behind those. And then down below, it has the demographic breakouts of what you were looking at. The next one I want to show you is the Acadience reading and math, which is down at the bottom. And there's the end of my slideshow. So now we are going to go right into the data gateway. A couple ways to find it. I'm just going to take it another way so you can remember how it's at if you don't have the URL link. If you go to schools.utah.gov or just the state's website, scroll until you find the data gateway, and that will launch you into it. When you're inside of the data gateway, and if you want to go back up, if you just click on the top where it says Utah State Board of Education, I'm just going to do a tab so you can see that. That will take you back to that home page. So compare schools. Let's click on this one. This is the update and the change that was put inside of there. So you have the year. We just have 1 year inside of there. You have, this gives you, this is RISE 3 through 10, 3 through 10 for math and science and WIDA. Now, the reason why this is only showing RISE is because Alpine, and then this is just default because it's alphabetized. Alpine Online School is an elementary school. So if I went to a school that had a high school, so for example, if I click on Westlake for a second, and I click on this one, it should change things up a little bit where it's like, hey, what are these other scores? So now you're going to see a 310. So what we're seeing inside of here is the combination or an inclusion of the Utah Aspire Plus is the results that we're looking at inside of here as well. Now I know that because I know those grade ranges. So just be aware that that's what we're looking at. So again, here's an example, but let's pick on a random charter school. When I say random, just scrolling down here. Gateway Preparatory Academy. I'm just randomly, if you're with us, thanks for letting me pick on you. Anyway, so all I've done is gone through and selected it. I'm looking at the science score, and I might say, well, I want to look at the math score performance. And what you'll see up here is this is the school that you've selected is up on top. It will give you your percent proficiency and how that percent proficiency compares to the 20 similar schools to you. Who's the highest performer of that group. And then on the other side, we'll show you what your MGP or your growth score, your medium growth score percentages and who's at those performances. If you click on the little icon, the eye information, it will tell you, I'm going to zoom in on that. I'm sure it is really small. This tells you how that, in case someone asks, how do we do the compare school? This is the algorithm behind it. Not that you want to memorize it, or maybe you do. Anyway, that's how we go through that process. So this is compare schools. It does get quite heavily used. So jump back
Aaron,
to, wait,
I'm
yes.
sorry. There's a couple of questions here in the chat, and I just want to make sure. I don't know. Do you want me to wait till the end, or do you want
No,
to?
I'm happy to hear them.
Okay, so one of them is, who is in charge of the SWD reports and data gateway? If we have questions on that report, who do we contact?
SW.
WD.
D, students with disability, and I assume they are talking about, and what happened is I just logged in, and where is it? Oh, this one over here, test scores by students with SWD. Is that the one that you're referring to?
Let me see. Yes, she said yes. That is the one she's
Okay.
referring to.
The answer behind that one is that is also, well, it's multiple people are responsible for this one. It's actually the IT team that maintains it. So if you have a question on it, probably the easiest, fastest way is to submit a request into the help desk ticket on the state's website, or you can also email data and statistics help. That will get to my team, and then we can go through and follow up on what's going on inside of there. So great question.
Thank you. There's one other thing here in the chat. City
Okay.
Academy only shows Rise, but we are a 7 through 12 grade school.
So we're like, let's go look them up.
Okay.
When you say, so City Academy
Yes.
only shows
Rise,
Rise,
but they are a 7 to 12 grade school.
okay? So it says Rise, but you see how this goes 3 through 10? And I'll show you a difference when we get to it.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted
So the answer to the question is I know it says Rise. It's because we're preparing for upcoming year where Utah Aspire Plus gets retired, and so we didn't go put it in there. We had it, and we thought, too much.
That's okay. He says he sees it now.
Oh, there. Oh, wait, it's there. So
Yeah.
I was going to
Thank
show
you.
them the report. Okay. Any other questions?
So far, I don't see anything else.
Okay. Jumping back onto the homepage, and then I'm going to go to the student proficiency report. And because City Academy asked, I will continue to use them as our fun guinea pig. I hope you don't mind too much. Down below, it's going to say show LEA and show school. I'm just going to click on, so right now it says hide. I'm going to hit show, which allows me then to drill further into it. Click on City Academy. When I click here, in the header, it's going to say student proficiency on Rise, Utah Aspire Plus, and DLM. Now, if I come over here to test type and just put Utah Aspire Plus and apply, what has happened is the state result has now been reduced to just the Utah Aspire Plus scores, and the LEA is showing those same scores. And if I wanted to go even further, because now that is just Utah Aspire Plus, and let's say I just want to see 9th grade, I can apply that. So now I'm just seeing 9th grade, both at the state and at City Academy. And if City Academy had multiple schools underneath them, which I don't think they do. Nope, they don't. But if you had multiple sites, that you could drill down into the additional sites. So for example, I'm clicking here on City Academy and showing the difference. Now, what's happening here is some end size disclosure avoidance is happening. This has to do with that data privacy that I talked to you about. So just kind of showing you what's happening here on the display. Hopefully that helps. Again, I can come back here and say, and show all. We might get above that threshold. Looks like just barely. So just kind of sharing the difference of what's happening in the reports in there. So if I want to say, well, I want to bring in all, this is just where caution is being presented, saying this is your overall test results. But when you're comparing that to the state will have 3 through 8 and 9 and 10th grade Utah Aspire Plus and the DLM score inside of there. This also has the DLM, and if this one would also have the DLM score inside of there. Again, hopefully this is fairly straightforward. You can filter it down to a single test too if you wanted to. There's multiple ways to slice and dice this one. Okay, I'm going to show you student growth. Student growth is very similar to this report. Basically, what's the difference is SGPs averaged at the state are 50. And so this is why that bar is inside of there. Let's see. I'm going to pick on Carl Mazer Preparatory Academy for an example. And you can see there's the shift inside of here. 50 is the state, and you can see what is the score. This is your SGP is 56, 62, and 47. And that kind of gives you what is the shift from 50 that you're seeing inside of there. So if I want to drop inside of there again and say, I just want to look at, for example, 6th grade, and apply that, I can go in. Whoops, looks like there's not a 6th grade. What grade range do you guys teach? Do we know? They don't know what grade they have.
Let me see.
Okay, they got 9th grade inside of there.
Okay.
So
Okay.
and this is me going, I don't know the grade range, but it tells me that hey, this is the Utah Aspire Plus because I built it to that one. So you can just see how that's changed, and just obviously as you go in and use these, make sure that you are aware of what that comparison is doing. It's always important to put inside of there. ACTs there, Utah Aspire Plus, early college, the state graduation report, the cadence reading and math, and the WIDA access. So I want to take you into the cadence reading. This one's a little bit more complicated, and it's also hitting a lot of the guidelines, or not guidelines, legislative interest right now. So questions are, well, how's my reading in Acadience? My math Acadience is also inside of here, so you can just tab over to this. But there's different components that we want you to be aware of as we're working through this, because it can be complicated. So right now, the question may come from the legislature, or from your board, or whatever your authorizer, whoever, say, hey, what is our Acadience reading score? Well, there's a clarifying, what do you mean by this? If I click on this drop down, so this says score type, it says percent at or above, percent at benchmark, percent above benchmark, or typical or better. These are different measurements that you need to be aware of. So for example, the new legislation where they are saying we want to have everyone at 3rd grade reading at or above. So one, I've got to change that filter over to percent at or above. It's taking a second. There we have it. So that changed that score, and also says, what grade are we looking at? Well, let's just filter it down to 3rd grade. So you can see that the state, and it's going to come through its coming. So, and this one, because this is over here, this is the end of year, it's at 70%. So this is kind of showing how we can go through and do this. So if I say show an LEA in school, I can further drill inside of here. So I go to an LEA, and I'll pick on, I don't know. Oops. Yeah, Mountainville Academy. I don't even know where that's at, but picking on a charter school. What this does is, again, it'll filter down to that charter school. That information will be displayed. But it gives you the state, the LEA, and the school results side by side as it processes through. So again, those filters, make sure you're aware what filters are put inside of there. If you're reading on the sub-scores and you want to see the sub-scores, look at additional information. Again, just click on the tab, takes you over. My filters are still on. There you go. And then you have the different sub-scores inside of here. You can look those up and see how they're performing. And you can also do the comparisons. This really is from proficiency movement comparison and growth movement comparison. Hopefully this graph looks somewhat similar to you. As you see in the AOL interface, I believe that's where it's at, where it talks about the movement changing. So for example, if I hover over this one, it's going to tell me for students that were well below benchmark at the beginning of the year, 61% of them were at the well below at the end of the year, where 9% of them went to the well above, I think is what it is. So, and this just repeats itself for the math and the math comparisons. Couple other things to show you real quick. Once you have a login, again, depending on your permissions, there are other reports to see. I'm going to take you over to school course performance for your information inside of this one as well. What this does, and I'm going to take this and let's go to America Preparatory Academy Draper 1, for example. It's default, there's different grade ranges. I'll click on 5th grade. So what this is doing is it is showing, again, this takes the same concept of the similar schools up to 20. The selected is in this kind of purple. The ones that are in your district are going, or within the same school, are going to be this kind of greenish. And then all the other schools, you'll see this rating inside of here. And so you see, and it's ranked by the highest to the lowest. And so if America Preparatory Academy was lower in, you'd see that there was a distribution inside of there. But it's telling them, these are the schools most similar to you, and this is your performance based upon that. We've found a lot of schools and grade teams really appreciate this ability to drive it, to drill into it and see this information. But again, you have to have the assessment access within the data gateway. You'd have to talk to your LEA data gateway admin to be able to access this one. We do have another report. This looks like the achievement report. I'm going to pick on Beehive Academy because it's close to the top. The way this works is I'll go into the elementary school. Once I have it, you'll see that I can click on it and it drills me into it. So this actually drills down to the student level. Here's the 4th grade, here's the 5th grade. You'll see underneath here, it's saying, here's the state, the district, the school. If I click on the school, takes me even deeper. Again, I'm looking at the science because that's the one I clicked on. Here are looks like the 6 teachers that teach at that school. And I'm not going to do the next click through, which takes me to the student list, because this is, I don't know if this is, this is not in the setting anyway. But if I click on this, this takes me, then I will get a list by the student, by the teacher. I will get a full student list of all the students that they have inside of there and their sub-scores. So that's where this report is at. It's one way to get to it. The other way is I can click on test scores by teacher, gets me the same thing. Process leading inside of there. You have the WIDA access download reports. There are the UTREX assessment reports. And by the way, the data gateway, for those who use it, all of the UTREX information is also housed within the same system. So there's quite a bit going on here within the data gateway. But this is just kind of your general introduction of what's inside of here. It's sharing you a couple of things for those who are in charge of the calendar. We do have to get the calendars for each year. This is a way to do it. You come over here. Again, you have to have the right permissions. And this is as we're collecting information for next year's school calendar. And you can say, well, I want to see, hey, have I put something inside of there? So I'm going to click on, for example, Bridge Academy. They haven't put it in there yet. And that's fine because we're not at the end of the year. They just go in here and click add calendar and go through and start adding those dates for the upcoming year. This is used for basically a report found on the data gateway where it talks about the LA calendar. This references these calendars, which are just PDFs here. That basically the state puts out and let everyone know, hey, what are all of the LEAs? What are the opening close dates and so on and so forth. So just know that that's where that's at and how it gets fed in. Any questions?
I don't see any. But I appreciate you coming or logging in and helping us with this. Again, directors, all of this will be uploaded on our YouTube channel if you want to come back, look at things that you may have missed. I do appreciate you coming out with us, Erin, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank
Any
you.
directors, do you have any questions or anything like that? If not, you guys, everyone have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next month. Bye.